Hi and welcome to bexbugoutsurvivor, and on this one it's more modifications for your Bergen. This one I'm making a jack lid. Now a jack lid is to replace the existing top lid, so that needs to come off. Now we've already taken the lid off a Bergen and put that to one side, and we made a floating lid. But if you really want to strip back some of the excessive weight, ready to frame a pack like this on an exo frame rather than an internal frame, or just use it like a backpack, I've done that too and that works. You can strip all the back system out, remove the top lid, and I've saved a lot of weight, and we'll have a look at that weight in a second. But first what I did was to remove the actual top lid which it came with, and instead of putting it back on a floating lid, I'm creating something like this, which is a jack lid, just something to hold the content down with. It needs waterproofing, but everything is in waterproof sacks anyway, so this is really stripped down and basic. And as I said, I can put this on my back and use it like a backpack rather than a rucksack. There's going to be those on the channel who'll see their arse about doing something like this and jump straight in the comments, why are you doing that with your Bergen? I don't understand. And well, that's their bad for not understanding. It's been explained plenty in other videos. But I have a pack here that is been modified. Instead of saving weight, it's actually put weight on with this additional back cushion, wider shoulder straps, and even a larger lid here for bugging out or replicating a British Army marching order to bug out with. That's all intact, that's ready to go. This, on the other hand, is something for recreational purposes, such as wild camping. Maybe just put some warm gear in, take it down to the beach to do some fishing. So this is purely recreational. The one over there is for a bug out, but then again, I wouldn't even use that in a bug out. I don't think it's the best Bergen in the world. And I know saying that is going to rattle a few feathers, because there are a lot of lovers of the Bergen, and they are good Bergens, but people will always say it's the best, and I'm wondering what have they had on their back regarding other Bergens. And there are plenty of them from all around the world, which in my opinion, and it is only my opinion, that is better than the CS 95 there. There are ones from Carrymore, they do the Predator, they also do one called the Sabre. There's external frame Bergens like the Savota, ones that I really would prefer. There's the Saracen from Low Alpine, that has got to be better because it has the comfort with a proper waistband, waist belt, and a proper harness system, as where with the PLCE there is bare minimum comfort for the shoulder harness and the belt and the back system. Pure minimum, if anything. In fact, there's nothing. You have to add to it to get the comfort, or remove it entirely and then develop it into something else that's workable. The Low Alpine, I would love to have a go at putting that on my back. It's slightly heavier, but it would have all the comfort without modulating it. With the CS95, you do have to modulate it yourself by putting wider shoulder straps, a back cushion, and adding pouches onto the front and sides. So I'm going to throw that on quickly, show you that it is great as a backpack if all you have is elements of your marching order ready to use for recreational camping, which is bivvy, sleeping bag, a basher, cook set, your roll pad, just simple things. Throw it on my back without the pad, and boy, it is so comfortable. And you will notice one small difference that I've already made to this that wasn't filmed. On my back is the stripped out back frame, and I have all them elements I just discussed in here, and lower down I've sewn on a couple of pouches actually onto the kidney pad here, and those pouches were from a plate vest carrier, and I've chopped them up and sewn them on, so I have a little bit more room than a standard utility in there. So if you want to know how this jack lid operates a little differently to a top lid, it's on a runner rather than a buttle. I just loosen up the strap, quite a long strap, which enables this element here to float, to hold down a pad or a sleeping bag. So I'm going to transfer the pad from my bug out bag to my recreational Bergen. My pad, I've got two pads here. If you just want to use one pad, obviously you can, or if you want to incorporate an inflatable into the mix, you can. Although I had somebody in the comments absolutely lose his stuff. It was quite a long-winded moan that I use an inflatable and a foam pad. It's none of his business, to be honest with you, what I use. If he doesn't want to use one, I'm not forcing him. I'm not forcing him to carry this. Talking of carry, I have the ability to lift from the top, and I have my pad in place here. This pad on top could be a sleeping bag, and that leaves 65 litres of occupation space on the inside, still unused, but mine is full. So get to camp, I can just undo that, and it works similar to the Alice pack, where you just slip the shoulders off your carriage and throw it behind. Okay, let's get into the make of it. Okay, I'm going to show you what all the components are made of here. The actual jack lid is a yoke, and I haven't actually modified it very much at all. I think I may modify some of the length by shortening it in future, but just an ordinary standard yoke. I'm going to sew mine onto the back and then thread straight into the existing pulls here. So let's have a look at it all stripped back. So I'm going to show you how it's all connected. I'm going to bring in the yoke. Now remember, the existing shoulder straps is what is going to make the load carry, and it has quite long straps, but I'm not going to need any of these back straps here. It's a case of sewing that to your Bergen and coming over to this side here, putting the existing Bergen closure webbing into that. So I'm going to chop these off and obviously put them in the little box for later. I really did toy with the idea of keeping these, but it's not really worth it. Okay, that's gone. That one's gone. That one's gone. Two different size webbing and buttle there, so I'm quite lucky having some good salvage here. That is just ready to sew on to the Bergen. I want to drape the yoke over the top of the Bergen with the existing shoulder straps here. Take the Bergen closure webbing that I've taken the QR clip off and put it straight into the yoke. This is literally a few seconds work that you could do right now. And if you've been following the series, you'll have already taken the top lid off. So if you haven't taken top lid off, I'll put a little link in the description box for you to follow. It's pretty simple. Let's just quickly take this one off. You see, you don't need any tools or scissors for this. And I've got myself some more valuable salvage. Make sure my webbing isn't twisted and put that into the slide there of the former yoke, which is now a jack lid. And tighten everything up. Let's have a look at it from the top. The back piece of the yoke is now the top piece of the Bergen, so you're looking down onto my Bergen, and with that being mesh, you can either sew in a waterproof panel behind that, but personally I just put everything into a dry sack anyway, or a dry liner, because your Bergen's going to get wet anyway. A Bergen's never been waterproof, even with the top lid. You've always had to waterproof your kit. So this was the existing strap off the floating lid option. I can remove that, but I was going to connect it to this section here of the yoke and have a really long ability to extend the range of the float, but I don't need it. There's plenty of floating ability, so instead this piece here of the yoke is going to get stitched to the actual Bergen itself, and believe me, I have tested all the ideas and this is the best option. There's my casualty evacuation strap, so you've got an orientation of where I am at the top of the Bergen, and a few stitches in that and job done. So let's get the yoke into place and measure it all out. I haven't got that many stitches to put into this. That's really good. I may just go from halfway to halfway and see what happens. So difficult. Let's see if I have 50% lined up. That's not too bad. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Okay, let's load up the needle, and I'll go across here using blanket stitches. I'll keep the blanket stitches pretty small because I do only have a finger length on that side to sew and another finger length on that side. And note, I always start in the middle, go across, and then lock off the stitches there, come back to the middle and sew from the middle to the other side. If I just start one end and go out to the other, invariably it won't fit, and then I'd have to undo the whole lot again. If there's anything wrong at this stage, I only have to undo half the stitches. Okay, the thread here is 150 denier waxed thread. Okay, so it is the toughest of all the threads. This isn't your corner shop thread by any means whatsoever. Let's get scissors and cut that. and I'm going to keep this doubled, so I've doubled the thread here. Let's just put in at least one stitch. I'm going to lock this off with an overhand knot to start me off. Go around the other way. From left to right and then right to left. That's the first stitch there. I want to make these stitches approximately, I'm going to have a good guess here, at about just 3 mil, maybe even 2 mil, which is the existing stitch size here. And this camera is not going to pick up just how fine 2 mil really is. If I can just get the first stitch through. And in order to pull this out more successfully, I could use a pair of pliers. I have broke needles using pliers before, so an elastic band to grab the needle is your next option, but mine's going through. I'm going to take my time. And judging by the speed this is going, I'm only going to show you one stitch. Before this loop comes to a close, I'm going to get the needle and pop it through that loop like that. Get these tails out the way so there's no confusion. And bring that into play there. That is exactly what I was looking for. That is great. There's your stitch there. It's a blanket stitch. The hinge section is on the top and the stitches are coming from the bottom. So always go through the loop with your needle before it closes and it will give this effect. And that's your blanket stitch. Follow the existing stitch. A little twisting motion there. And grabbing some material of the yoke, and I think an elastic band or a pair of pliers is going to be required for this job here, or you could just take your time. See, grabbing it here, my fingers are sliding down. I haven't got the friction. I'm going to get an elastic band. Ordinary band. Let's get that around it. There. That needle's come out straight away with that friction. So keep that somewhere safe there. Before the loop closes, it's important you put your needle through. And I'm going to close mine up very, very slowly. Make sure I have both parts locked in. That's another one in, and I will be using that to either push through or pull the needle, and this will give a hinge. So I can push that through there. Again, I can use the sewing needle to get some extra little purchase with the elastic band. And you can see with the elastic band wrapped around my fingers, I've got a little bit more pushing power there. Take the elastic band, come to the top and start pulling the needle the other way. This is why you are never going to be able to do this job with one of them happy shopper sewing kits from the supermarket. And you might think that's obvious, but there have been people on the channel who have tried. There you go. Oh, that's looking absolutely delicious. That is exactly the stitch I need. That is exactly the size I need. And there's a lot of them to put in. The yoke has been sewn all the way across the back of the Bergen. And that's taken just under an hour. Pretty good going. Happy with that. I used a blanket stitch, which is best to form a hinge, rather than a back stitch where I'd have to layer the two together, sandwiched like that. Instead, it's hinged like that. So the blanket stitch was best for that. I'm just going to lock it off and we're done. I just need to lock off the last stitch. So I have the loop like that and the needle. And just like tying your shoelaces, a couple of overhand knots in like that. Now I've already put my overhand knots in, so I can trim off the tails and then introduce a bit of heat. Because this is wax thread, it will weld in like that. There's one side, and melt the other side in like that. So not only is it knotted in, it's welded in as well. I've got one more here in the middle to do, because remember I started from middle to the right and then the middle to the left, so I can weld that up as well. So this kind of thread here, the 150 denier wax thread, is the strongest thread to do this with. Again, don't use any old thread from a supermarket. You want the best there is, and this thread is noticeably the best to do this job. Unfortunately, this camera doesn't do close-ups very well, but you can see a lovely row of blanket stitches, and you can see the thread coming across the top to make a hinge. So that is the stitch work all the way across. Let's come over to this pack here and get straight into the sunlight so you're glad, and take this pad off and bring it and lock it off with the new jack lid here. So off with the shoulders. Bring either a sleeping bag or your pad, or items that you do not want to carry in the main body, just to free up some extra room. Bring down the yoke strap. Make sure I have a good tension on that. Also on this side here, to push down on the load from the top and nip it all up. That's not going anywhere. This is the casualty evacuation strap from the yoke, which is now a jack lid, so I can lift the cargo from the very top. Nicely balanced. Let's spin this around, and you have the casualty evacuation strap for the Bergen here, and from the yoke here, so I can lift here as well. So that is the top lid removed, replaced with a jack lid. I've also removed all the back frame, and that doesn't mean just pulling out that metal rod that was in the back. I've also pulled out all the ribs as well, pull them out as well. So I have saved a lot of weight, provided you've only got fabrics in your pack, like a sleeping bag, a wooby, a bivvy, just fabrics. Get them all into a 100 liner. This liner is for this Bergen here. Everything is going to be waterproof, and it sits nicely on your back even without the padded frame. It's a lot more comfortable. If, however, you are using your Bergen with components that are not fabric, you have saws in it, axes, pole systems, anything that is not a fabric, in other words, don't do this to your Bergen. Instead, go the other way and strengthen your back support like I've done with that JJ's Bergen there. If all you have is fabrics for your wild camping, for your fishing, like I said, a sleeping bag, a bivvy bag and a basher, they're all fabrics. They sit nice on your back. In this one here is what I'm using for a hammock setup, and I have a synthetic underquilt or two, the hammock and the tarp for it. So the tarp sits in the bivvy bag on the front, cook set and rations are down on the utilities, and then the actual underquilt and everything is stowed inside. That is what is going into mine. If I wanted anything more than that, like a tent which has poles, I would probably now put this onto my exo frame, and there is already a video of me making attachments from the spare webbing which allows this Bergen to be stowed onto my exo frame and pulled tight. Now, because all these modifications have been done in prior videos connecting a Bergen to an external frame, an exo frame, I'm not going to go through it all again, but one thing I will do is to create more webbing adjustments, probably made from the slides and that spare webbing. I'm going to make 4, 2 on each side. That connects straight to my exo frame. From there I can carry a load, and I've done it. It's already been done, and it is made, I put 30 kilos in, and it felt like carrying 10 kilos having an exo frame. And you don't actually use your existing shoulder pads, you use the shoulder pads and hip band from the exo frame. So this is just a connection to put onto a frame, and it can be detached from the frame, so it's not permanent, and then you can use it like a backpack. It won't be used as a Bergen ever again. I already have one here. It won't be used as a ruck because of how I've altered it. It will be a backpack, which means you are bearing or brunting some of the weight on your shoulders, hence me saying just put fabrics in for a wild camp, fishing, a night out. I find it fine. If you're one of them making a bug out bag, you could still do this, provided it's on an exo frame. Or you could just keep a spare Bergen. One is your bug out bag and the other is for recreational use. This one here only cost about maybe 20 quid, and then the pouches, tenner each, the yoke probably a £5, and I've well modified it everywhere else, including mesh nets, so I don't have to use the rocket pockets if it's just for recreational use. This is brilliant, so comfortable, like you won't believe. This one here is not for recreational use. This is more dressed for natural disasters or a bug out situation. Although I'm not a fan of this particular CS95 Bergen, I would rather use something like the Saracen from Low Alpine or the Sabre from Carrymore. I've not tried them, but the back system looks really comfortable and has better litrage than this. 65 litres, guys, without this section here, which is the snow collar. So from the snow collar to the bottom is only 65 litres. If you want to extend to 90 litres, use a snow collar. If you're using a snow collar, you're going to have to extend your lid here on a floating lid system, and that's already been done on this particular Bergen. So now I can use the full 90 litres, and of course I've got 10 litres between the top lid and the front pouch, and then add that 10 onto your 90, gives you your 100 litres. The misconception is the main chamber in a PLC Bergen is 100 litres. It's nowhere near, it's 65. But now I have 65 here, and the ability to carry my tent, my sleeping bag, roll pad, anything I want up there. And I still have 65 litres of occupation available on the inside. I don't have to put my basher on the inside, that's on the outside, cook sets on the outside, and my rations are on the outside, mesh nets to stow a warm jumper. So it's most of the marching order stripped down and put into here, and on a separate video we'll be taking out some of the elements from your marching order and putting it into one of these packs, probably this one, so you can see what a soldier would use for his marching order and how civilians can adapt that into a Bergen like that. And that's all this is here, is the elements from marching order to make shelter, insulation, cook set. Me, I'm done. I'm happy with that. Shelter, insulation, cook set. Obviously food, water added to it. If you want to put a spare jumper in, that is part of your marching order. But in this case, I've got a full change of clothes, which is not necessary for a short duration trip. Digital weighing scales. I'm just going to put a stand on here and zero it so we can weigh what it is. That's zeroed. This here is the top lid. Let's put that onto zeroed scales. Now, in case you can't see, that is 677 grams. 677. Let's put that in old money. 1.7 and 7/8. I don't know what any of that means, but it is 677 grams. Let's add in the back spine here. You can see I've removed all the ribs, the rods and the sleeve. Let's add that to this here, which is the top lid, and let's see what the total saving is now. On it goes. Let's have a look here. That is 1475, nearly 1.5 kilos between the top lid and all these bits that used to make up the back frame. Just shy of 1.5 kilos saving there, and my exo frame is way under 1.5 kilos, way under. So look out for that video coming up. We'll leave this at home, bring this one out, and we'll have a look at what elements of the marching order can be translatable to a civilian for bushcrafting, fishing, night camps, whatever your hobby is. Basically shelter, insulation, a sleep set, a cook set, sorry, and maybe a warm jumper. Waterproofs I've got here, but I haven't got round to add in a basher pouch on this, so that'll be an interesting video. Not only that, I'll be scaling down from this pack to a much smaller pack that we give to the ACF, and we'll see how much an adult Bergen, how much march kit you can get from a senior Bergen into the ACF Bergen, which is Army Cadet Forces, and it's a good Bergen, and you'll be surprised it can get nearly everything in your adult Bergen can. If you don't believe me, come and join me for that episode coming soon, and I'll see you soon. Till then, take care of yourself. God bless. See you out there. Happy trails.